Welcome to ELA Radio, where we tune into all ways of knowing. I'm your host, Laura Lynn, and joining us today we have Johanna Mosca. Welcome, Johanna.
Thank you so much. Happy to be here.
Great. So, to jump right in, could you define for us what intuition means for you?
What comes instantly is inner knowing. I would say it's more a feeling than anything else.
For sure. Would you equate it like with like a gut feeling?
That's a good description.
Okay. So, is there a moment in your life where you listened to that gut feeling and something happened because of it?
I'm laughing because my life is rich and long, and you're asking me for a moment when I listen to my gut feeling. It's like I get inner yeses and nos all of the time. Okay. Um, I went on a vacation to Sedona, and I just had a knowing that I was to move here. Okay, and now I live here. So, is that a good enough example?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, especially when it comes to nature and land, I feel like there are these callings
There,
that could you talk more about your relationship with nature?
my favorite thing to do is my prayer walk. I go out almost every day in the Red Rocks. I like Cathedral Rock. There's a park. It's called Red Rock State Park, which has an overlook for Cathedral Rock. And I do a walk there and back is just about a mile and three quarters. And the whole time I'm praying, I'm doing my mantras and things like that. And just checking into what's around and feeling and um, manifesting, um, manifesting the universe's blessings for me on this day, on each day. And also releasing any energy that I picked up that's getting in the way. Having it first, because you have to have it, but then, any sadness or something I don't want to keep for a long time, feel it, figure out why it's here, and let it go. And being out in nature is the biggest clearing for me. And I felt that these red rocks drew me here. And I
Oh,
wrote a poem about it that they drew me here with a knowing of the heart. Yeah.
definitely. So, would you say that you've always had a deep connection with nature?
Yes and no. I've always liked to be outside. We'll put it that way. But my deepening connection with nature occurred when I did the shamanic energy medicine training and studied looking at the earth the way the shaman do, and looking at the planets and looking at the sky, and I became more and more and more a part of it. Whereas my previous yoga training took me inward more, the shamanic energy medicine just took me out into a real feeling of connectedness with the universe.
Could you tell us more about what led you to the shamanic training?
Well, that was one of these gut decisions. I went on a retreat to Peru, mainly because I wanted to do be there with the chanting experts, Deva Pramal and Miten. They were doing chanting, and the retreat was in Peru with their friend Alberto Velodo, whom I didn't know anything about, but it sounded interesting. So I went to this retreat for the music, which wound up being 1 hour a day at the end of the day. And each day we were taken on buses to different Machu Picchu type places where we had, shamanic prayers and ceremonies and all sorts of connection with the universe. So it was there that, you know, sometimes retreats have at the end, if you sign up during the retreat, we will give you a great discount. Well, they had one of those. And I just muscle tested, is this a yes? And I got such a radical yes that I instantly signed up for a 300-hour shamanic energy medicine training in my 70s. Okay, still learning and growing and finding the next new thing that's calling me forth to learn deeper dimensions of life.
Wow, that's so incredible. You talked about this muscle feeling. Could you talk more about what you meant by it?
Um, well, kinesiology is a science. Muscle testing is a science, and I had different energy masters who were my teachers who taught me to muscle test decisions, and I use kinesiology in one of my healing techniques, which is Psych K. Um, I was first introduced to that when I went to a Bruce Lipton workshop, and he did a Psych K exercise with the audience, and I had a major shift. So I said, I want to know more about this. So now I just finished my master facilitator course, and this was also in my 70s. I just turned 80, by the way. Um, so I understand from your interviews that you're early 30s, and I admire you so much for the wisdom you have. I wish I had had that then, but I'm so glad to have what I have now and to connect with you and share with you and learn from you and share my teaching with you. Um, so the muscle testing, um, essentially the Psych K is based on we don't know what's going on in our subconscious, really, and that the subconscious mind is about 90% running us, and the 10% is the conscious mind. So, this is what I said to myself. You've been working on yourself your whole life. What is there that you don't know you don't know? Hmm. And is there something to what they're saying about this international program studying the effect of the subconscious? And the truth of the matter is, if I think I have a goal and I say it and I muscle test it, if it's believed in my subconscious, it will muscle test yes. And if it's not believed, it will muscle test weak. But then that's not the end of it, because the Psyche teaches balance processes for us to balance the left and right hemispheres of our brains and actually shift the doubtful part of ourselves to be more positive. So it's kind of a long answer, but that's the crux of the muscle testing. And then when I started to study the Psyche, they said, don't muscle test every little tiny thing in your life. And that's where your intermission comes in, because you don't want to muscle test everything. You want to look at the different parts of you that are getting clues from the universe, whether it's your gut, or you see something that reminds you, or you hear something that reminds you. Um, so I just wanted to put the muscle testing in perspective, and it really works.
Yeah. One thing that I had a hard time was bridging the academic work with the spiritual aspects. Did you have any issues with that, or how did you see these two different ways of knowing?
Well, if I were to describe who I am, I'm a type A person, student. I just have always been. What I did was I loved school. I loved sitting in the front. I loved being the first one to put my hand up to give the answer. So learning to me is life, and contributing it and teaching is also life. So it doesn't seem cerebral to me because it's a part of me. You know what I mean? Figuring it out, learning, knowing more. And then the deeper spiritual, well, I was Catholic, raised Catholic, and I can remember how old I am is we would do this, hitting our chest when the bell rang. And I always felt sweetly spiritual in my communion dress, and I saved those pictures, and so there was a real connection to God there. Although I don't necessarily follow every tenet of the Catholic religion at this point in my life, it's more eclectic, um, or maybe polymathic, if that's a word.
Yeah, definitely. That's definitely what we're about here at Ayla
One of
Radio.
my favorite yoga teachers, she said, "I can never be the devotee of one guru. They're all my gurus." You know?
Exactly. That's exactly how I feel.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely being polymathic as far as like the academic sense, but in the spiritual sense, I think that every religion we can learn something from it.
Totally. In my book, I have a chapter about the last chapter is the 10th yoga principle, which is surrender to a higher power. And I talk about my friend Pessy, who's deeply into Judaism. And on the weekend, she doesn't use her cell phone. She's in prayer mode, and I always admire that. And whichever path you're taking, as long as you get there and you have that connection, it's totally beautiful.
For
And it's
sure.
right. And it's right for you because God chose you that way, and you chose God that way.
Hmm.
Mm.
So, could you tell us more about your book?
I could talk about my book for a long time. Um, my book is called, I have a few books. My passion has been, there's 10 yoga principles that were, 200 years before Christ. They were supposedly disseminated by wandering sadhus or wise men. And then they were recorded by Patanjali as the Yoga Sutras or the Yoga Wisdom Sayings. And they happen to be the foundation of all of yoga. And there's five principles to make there's five principles to get along with other people and to succeed socially in community. And there's five principles to make yourself the best person you can be. Um, I always thought it was interesting that they put the five social principles first, mainly because you really, it's a challenge to do the deeper work if you've got a lot of garbage going out there with people, dishonesty and out integrity. So, you know, basically having successful interaction with your life, with the people in your life, your family, your neighbors, your job, whatever you're doing. And that's, you're at peace with that. Then going into how do I develop myself more fully? Not that they don't all happen side by side, because they do. And
Yeah.
I can tell you what the 10 principles are if you like. I I don't like to flash them out without giving at least one reflection question for them. So people don't just get the word and they go, I know compassion. All right? Because
Okay.
these 10 principles, they're not new, obviously. They've been around forever. And they dovetail with the Buddhist principles and principles of all of your religions. Okay. The thing is, we need mindfulness because people forget them and we don't realize how we violate them. And I found I these principles stuck with me. And whenever something went wrong and I was out of sorts, I would look at what it was and I violated one of these principles. So the idea is not to blame yourself for anything. It's kind of a no fault, no blame reflection. And one of the principles of yoga is self reflection. Another principle is contentment, making sure that it's my job to be contentment, not anybody else's job to make me contented. So the five principles, if I may give a thought question for each one.
Yes, please.
So they have Sanskrit names. The five social codes are called yama, Y-A-M-A, yamas, and the five internal ones are called niyamas, Niyamas, and ni means internal, so those are internal codes. So the five principles for harmony and success. The first one, and I have some questions if you don't mind my looking down at my paper for a minute here. The first one is compassion, ahimsa in Sanskrit, and it's about being centered in your heart. And the question I would ask the people who are watching or listening, how can you be more compassionate to yourself and to other people wherever you are? Okay, because it's always about doing the best you can and seeing where you can do even more love, more compassion, more kindness. And the second principle is truthfulness or satya. Um, Truthfulness is an interesting one. I have a very intricate chapter on truthfulness because there's truthfulness that's not lying. That's the easy truthfulness, okay? But the deeper truthfulness is being true to yourself. That's where your intuition comes in. Where are you true to yourself and where are you not true to yourself? And where do you sell out for approval sometimes? And
Mhm.
So the question there to the listeners would be, what could you do to be more true to yourself and more truthful to others? Then the third one is not stealing or asteya. And I call it keep your eyes on your own mat. Show more respect. How could you show more respect for the time and the belongings of other people? Okay. We don't realize that, taking the attention from somebody else when it's their time is sort of stealing. So it's about having more respect for people's time and belongings. And then the fourth one is moderation. That's a great one for us to look at if we would make a pie and cut slices of it. What percentage of the time do we spend as couch potatoes? What percentage of the time do we spend deepening our spirituality? What percentage of the time do we spend contributing? So the main question there would be what drains your energy and what replenishes your energy? And this is based on, um, the yoga belief that what we're aiming to do is to be in our highest consciousness and to contribute that. And then the last one is non-attachment, aparigraha in Sanskrit. Non-attachment, this is my cup. This is the way I always do the meetings. This is my favorite seat. So, being attached to your outcome and being attached to having things come your way. So those are the five: compassion, truthfulness, non-stealing, moderation, and non-attachment. And any questions while I mention those before, do you want me to go on to the other five?
Well, it's not so much a question, but looking at your astrology, it was just so interesting how you were drawn to these principles because you have a Sagittarius in the ninth house, and that's your sun. And this is the way that you shine, and Sagittarius is about truth. And so you were shining when you were talking about these different ones. And I love that you added a question after each one because it really allows deeper understanding of it. And that deepness comes from your Leo and Pluto in the fifth house of self expression. So, this is a way that you're expressing yourself right now, talking, but also the way that you wrote the book. And lastly, just really quickly, I wanted to mention your moon in Virgo in the sixth house because you can tell that this is where your heart is, like your work is where your heart lies, and Virgo is about giving but also receiving. So it's interesting that you mentioned having that balance of the two. So it was just interesting how astrology lined up with what you're working on.
That's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that with me. That's really wonderful. The next five about the intention is go to get into your highest consciousness. And these are the five principles. The first one is purity or cleanliness. And so the question would be how might you need to clean up your act if somebody was coming over to your house to visit? I'll give another funny example. Do you wait to do the laundry until you have no socks? I mean, so it's about purity and cleanliness and just taking care of matters out there so that you can find things and it's clean and orderly and it supports higher consciousness. And then the second one is contentment, which is just the most beautiful. It's a yoga principle to be satisfied. It doesn't mean you like everything that happens. When things happen that you don't like, the idea is okay, I can be okay with that for now, but I need to plant some seeds to change that because that's not working for me. Okay. But I'm not going to get into a moaning party. Okay. Uh, you switch from gripe to gratitude, obviously. Do you know what I mean? But I had heard you say in one of your videos, um, you have to feel it. You know what I mean? So the hardest time I had to ever get contented was when my mother died. You don't immediately get contented with the gratitude in your life when you have the loss of your mother. You have to really feel that. Okay. But the idea of the contentment principle is not to dwell on it and to do your best to shift. because it's our job to make ourselves happy, and then we can contribute that to other people, which is the contribution. So that's contentment, the second one. The third one, I love it, but it has a bad rap: discipline. Discipline makes life work. For all of us who graduated high school, you had to have the discipline to stay inside when the summer months were coming and study for the regions and for the exams and everything else. Not to mention you and I going on to things like a doctoral dissertation, the discipline that that takes. But it's about preservation, okay? But I'm serious. Discipline makes life work. And there's discipline imposed by the outside, and then there's discipline that you impose upon yourself. And then there's all of us. I could say to everybody, raise your hand if you have something you haven't quite had the discipline to do yet. All right. And everybody will raise their hand because there's always something we have on the back burner that we'd like to do, but we're not quite taking on yet. So that's my question. What would you like to have the discipline to do? And then the next one is self study. Every night when I go to bed, I go over the gains of the day and if there's anything that wasn't a gain and set intentions for the next day. And I do the same thing in the morning. So it's about reflecting on your choices and your decisions, but always in a no blame way. You never blame yourself. I call myself honey when I have to correct her. I go, honey, that did not really work. I don't think you want to do that way again. Follow? So it's kind of like that. So my question to listeners would be, how are you doing? I'm thinking Mayor Koch many years ago in New York. He used to have the slogan, "How am I doing?" Okay, so the question is for us to keep asking, "How am I doing?" And without any blame, and reflecting on your own choices each day. Um, and lastly, the last one is the big one. It's the prayer walk. How can you surrender more to a higher power? How much of the time are you connected to this the higher power in the universe, the higher consciousness that runs through all of us and connects us and keeps us all together and linked? Are you just connected with this Sunday from 10 to 11 a.m.? Or are you connected with it each day? How do you connect? And that's one of the reasons I love my prayer walk, because if my computer gets me busy, my prayer walk helps me stay in my connection so that when I go back to my computer, I can feel my connection. And in the book, we all know we could use so many words for God. Mother Nature, the great source, resource, the universe. Okay. Whatever you believe in, it's fine with me. It doesn't have to be a formal religion. And if it's a formal religion, that's fine too. It's, I think it's good to believe in something, you know? It doesn't have to be a belief in a formal religion, but I think the definition of God from the yoga is basically it's a pulse that runs through the whole universe. It's God. It's in a rock. It's in a plant. It's in a lizard. It's in me. It's in the tree. It's in you. It's in all of us.
Yeah.
That's the last one. Uh, how might you surrender to trusting a higher power of divine intelligence is guiding you? Because a lot of the ways that people go down to a black pothole is they think they're alone. Okay, and they don't really connect that there is a divine essence in the universe that's part of every single one of us, and that we're being guided and provided for. And some days it doesn't look that way. So just to repeat them, they're purity, contentment, discipline, self-study, and surrender to a higher power. Yeah. And if I just may say about the book, um, I put it in a workshop format, um, so that people would get first the source of the principles, where they came from, the meaning of the principle, the benefits, ways to apply it. Then a lot of exercises to integrate it: journal writing, affirmations, drop ins, meditations. And then I have quotes from people way, way, way back, quotes about living these principles, helping you succeed in life, from businessmen to poets to actors, uh, to religious leaders of all kinds, that these principles are a way for us to promote our own integrity, for us to succeed, to get to the deeper questions that we have that you put in all of your books. You know what I'm saying? The clearer and the cleaner it is all out there, the less you've got pulling on you. And the more we are able to get in touch with our divinity and our purpose.
I like the way that you said it when you were talking about the seeds. So instead of us holding on to the seeds and feeling anxious of when to plant them or where to plant them, you're saying like even in times where things aren't happy and cheery, to still be planting these seeds because that's what's going to grow. That's what's going to connect us to nature and to a higher being. And it's interesting because you have Virgo, you have Jupiter in Virgo, and Jupiter is about expansion, and Virgo is like name Mother Nature. So you expand by planting these seeds. And I actually have the same placement as you here. So it's really interesting that I hadn't seen it this way. And that's what I love about astrology, is that I'm constantly learning something new, even though I've been studying it for over half a decade. And yeah, I really loved that piece. And then you also have Mars in Sagittarius in the eighth house. And so this is your motivation. And so you're talking about this light that runs through you and through everybody. And Sagittarius is this source of energy. The way that you related it to a pulse, that's what the yogi said about a god. I think that that is very Sagittarius, and this like explosion that is constant. And do you feel like that's how your motivation is, that you'll have sources of inspiration and you'll be able to create that way, or what's your creation process like?
That's an interesting question. So I'm taking a moment. Um, my creation process, it kind of goes with my type A personality. I get an idea, and I'm all of a sudden on GoDaddy buying the domain for that idea because it's going to be an article or a book. I mean, it's that fast. And now I'm saying to myself, you have spun so many plates, Johanna, that you're like this goddess with all of the arms, that we're spinning this, we're spinning that. Poly is an understatement for the number of plates that I'm spinning, and I love them all. Okay. So for me, it's about balance and which one has a priority now, and delegation, and having a team so that the team can do the stuff that I don't want to do or I don't know how to do. Like I was going to force myself to become a social media master, and I gave it up. I just decided. I hired one. She's marvelous. God bless you, Megan. She's marvelous, and she's doing these little reels that I go, oh my God, she did that. That's wonderful. I didn't have to do it. She did it. So my creative process is, it comes like an inspiration, almost a surge of energy. Okay. But now we have a human voice in the background going, who's going to do this? And how are we going to do it? And do you really want to start another thing? All right.
Yeah, I think that's such an interesting point with Sagittarius, because Sagittarius is also the philosopher, and the delegator is the one that it's associated with law and legal works. Um, but it's also with it's also really related to reason. And I really wanted to get into how you view reason. How has it helped you in your life? I know that's a broad question, but any words about reason?
Okay. Well, stay with me here and we'll flesh this out. Okay. I'm going to ask you how you define reason, or are you wanting to know how I define reason? Um, are we talking about reasoning as the thought process? I just, You know what I mean?
Yeah, so it's what how I see it, it's like this critical thinking skill that sometimes we rely too heavily on, and I think that that's where intuition needs to have a role because if we put all of it on our mind, all the everything that's going on our minds, and we're just overthinking, then that's how mental health degrades. And so that's where I'm trying to understand the benefits of reason and how to not and how to have boundaries so that we don't go into these spirals of overthinking.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing it that way. Well, the thing with me is I truly believe that the reasoning is done by 10% of our minds, and 90% of our minds are habit. Okay. So in my wiser later life, I am now looking at, okay, you're thinking that, but do you really believe that? And is that really essentially true to you? And that's why I do these balance exercise from the Psyche. I do them on myself every day, every day, because I want to know if what I'm thinking holds really true for every part of me and is in the highest good. Um, so, to answer your question, how important is reasoning? Um, my whole identity is like as a bright person. So I think. Do you know what I mean? Let's put it this way. I think the word I like to use, and I use it in my title. I didn't give the title of the book. I use the word conscious. Okay, so the title of the book is Sedona Soul Stretch: 10 Ancient Yoga Principles to heighten consciousness and performance. Okay. So what I'm about is heightening consciousness and performance. And I think the five first principles heighten your performance, and the second get into your consciousness a little deeper. So I'm just aware that what we're bringing to our consciousness, there's still 90% of the mind that's habit. So I am into tapping into what I don't know, I don't know.
That's a sweet spot for sure. But you talked about the alignment, and I think that's the crucial piece that a lot of people don't listen to their guts, don't listen to what their hearts are saying. They only listen to what reason says. Like, this doesn't make sense, so I'm not going to take that leap of faith. And so, when you were talking about the alignment, do you literally go through each chakra, for instance, to see how these energies are aligning, or is it just an overall feeling of the collective coming together? Does that make sense?
It makes sense, and it's a good question. Uh, I'll see what my answer is because I never thought about it. I don't consciously tap into the chakras that way. However, I know enough about my chakras to know if one's blocked. And I
Mm.
didn't talk about the other thing I studied when I said yes to the shamanic energy training. I do workshops where people come and they tell me what's going on for them, and they blow the emotion into one of my prayer stones from my medicine bag, and I'm able to test which of their chakras are blocked, help them rake it, open it up, and they leave like, yay! All right. And I do that with myself too. So I can feel if my heart is blocked and I'm not feeling the love I'd like to feel. Okay. I can feel if I feel scattered, my root chakra needs to be grounded. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's kind of like that. And I can feel if I got sort of a gut punch in my solar plexus, like my self esteem is hurting.
Mm.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
they're a part of me. I don't necessarily need to channel through them, but I know they're there, and I
Mhm.
know that yoga helps keep them open. And does that answer the question pretty
Yeah,
much?
no, yeah, definitely. Yeah, thank you so much. So you have had such an interesting life. Could you walk us through like major career moments or like what led you to this point today?
I can, and I will. Let's see. I was born. No. Um, I grew up in New York. I went for the first 3 grades to a Holy Rosary school and then to public school. And I just loved school. And um, I had one teacher, God bless him, may rest in peace. I think his name was Mr. Cassesi. He told me I had diarrhea of the mouth because I would talk and I would go on and on and on and on. And then I went to Hunter College, and then I got my MA at Hunter College. But when I became a teacher, and I taught high school English, and what else? I taught high school English, and then I became assistant chairperson of the English department, and I was considering becoming a chairperson. And I went and I took a degree in administration, a 30 credit degree in administration, to be a school administrator. And then somewhere along the way, I went on a trip to Sedona, Arizona, fell in love with it, and didn't want to go back. So I wound up going back, packing up my life, and sitting in the car, driving with my stuff to Arizona, working on my PhD while I was in the car because I had all of these tapes from interviewing people. I interviewed them about writer's block, and that was my PhD. Because my other hat is I'm a writer. So I remember listening with one tape and then putting a different tape in and saying my comments about the tape that I just heard. So then when I got here to Sedona, I um, I rented a room, and I also met this cool guy who was living in his van. So I lived with him for a while. We shared a van, which is the most incredible was the most incredible thing in the world. I bought us a chirotonic mattress for the van, a queen size mattress. And when we broke up, he had to keep the mattress. But it was just too cool, and we actually lived outside in a van, and we cooked whatever we cooked in one pot and eat it from there. It was too fun. And then after I broke up with him, I wound up getting my own van and getting somebody to build a closet, and we put a stove in. And I lived out on the land for about 14 months. We used to go to the health spa for showers and stuff, join the health spa, but live in the van. So that was a fun part of my life in between my teaching in New York and my actually starting Sedona Spirit Yoga Healing and Vortex Journeys. The in between was this camping woman who had fun. It was good. So yeah, I did that. And then after doing yoga on the Red Rocks a lot, being splashed by dogs, I said, well, this would be cool. Why don't I create a business out of this? Bring people to Sedona and take them out and do yoga on the rocks. And nobody was doing it. Now we have a lot of people doing it. So I started my business, and it did very, very, very well for 6 years, from 2019 to just last year. Won a Best of Sedona award for my yoga and hiking business. And it just got more and more eclectic as I got interested in more and more healing techniques. The yoga was wonderful, but I wanted to go deeper. Okay. So then I took 300 hours in Yoga Nidra. Yoga Nidra is yoga relaxation. When you lie in Shavasana, the teacher will guide you into different levels till you get to your complete subconscious, and you can release anything you've got underneath. And it's a wonderful, I learned it from Richard Miller. I learned a wonderful 10-step program. And the Yoga Nidra got me from the body into a deeper level of inside the body, underneath everything. You've got stuff, Johanna. Emotions, thoughts, beliefs, experience, it's in there. And it would be when you relax your mind, your breath, your body, and you went inside. Not you, when I did it, I would access different parts of myself. So that was my first foray into studying what that there is much, much more to me in my subconscious, you know, becoming aware of it, not like it wasn't always there. And, um, and I think it was like a bridge from the yoga, which was all about the body and the spirit and calming the mind. Then going, once the body is calm, going in, what's underneath there was the yoga nidra. And then seeing that there's such a body of subconscious unknown, the whole idea that Psyche studies this unknown and shows you ways that you can balance your brain hemispherically to to look at what your limiting beliefs are and do some sort of balance with your body to balance your brain to clear them so that you have more positive empowering beliefs. After I did the Sedona business, I ran out of money, so I said I'm going back to the school system. But of course, I lost all my contacts, and I was no longer going into a good school and whatever. And I was all set to go back. I finished my doctoral dissertation in somebody's house. We did an exchange while I was camping. I would go to her house and babysit for her daughter, and I would make her a big batch of couscous or some wonderful dish. And in the meantime, I could keep my computer in the back room of her house and work on my dissertation. So I did that. And then I just called my mentor in New York and I said, I'm ready. Yeah, a blast from the past. I'm ready. He said, come on in. And thank God I passed the dissertation review the first time. They wanted a couple of changes. I said, okay, as long as I pass, I'll change whatever you want. And um, that was a thrill. It was a thrill of my life, the PhD. So then I came back, and I don't know at what point it was. I moved into a house, and then I later bought a house, and now I'm on the second house that I bought. And my current house has a big yoga studio in which I do my healings and I go to yoga classes. And I have a medicine wheel outside for ceremony. And I'm not far from Red Rock State Park where I like to do my prayer walks. And it works. It works. And just to keep myself interested, I met a best friend who lives in Louisiana. She and I were meditating at the same favorite place, and I, excuse the expression, picked her up. I said, oh, we have so much in common, we should get together. And while she was here for 2 years, we saw a lot of each other. Then she moved back. And now we talk every day, and I keep going to Louisiana, and I just bought a house in Louisiana. So we have just now met a community of people in Louisiana with whom I'm sharing the work that I do, and they're very, very nice. They threw the lady with the antique store, Pamela. I told her if I did a meet and greet, would you come? And she said, not only would I come, why don't you have it here? So I had a meet and greet in Louisiana. So next phase of the journey is I call it my Louisiana purchase, the house I'm buying in Louisiana. It's new. It's a whole new community. It's new people. I went into a neighborhood yoga studio, and they don't have a yoga teacher training, and I'm certified to do yoga teacher training. And I told them, would you like one? And they said, yes. I said, well, let's get together and talk about it. So it feels like, are you hearing me? There's just openings. And my next book is for seniors to call themselves forth. And the Pali is what calls you forth. There's always something new for your heart to just get excited about and thrive about and want to know more and want to integrate to make life richer.
So it's so cool that you're a teacher because or that you used to be a teacher because I used to be a teacher as well, and I'm currently working on my dissertation right now. So it was really cool the different parallels. But I wanted to ask you, what would you change about education, whether your own schooling or what you saw when you were a teacher, or any time that you went back? Just what would you change, and what did you like about it too? Well, other than learning about everything.
Great. I have a few things I'd like to say. I would like life principles taught in education. I just think there's so much more that education could do to cultivate the person, to be an individual. So much of going to school was trying to compete with everybody else for something. I didn't have to because I was always the one that got the A's. They could compete with me.
Same.
It just happened. It was the way I thrived. Okay. I wrote another book about the yoga principles. It's called Teen Triumph 10 Ways to a Winning Life. And I wrote it the year that I saw on television that in the schools they were shooting up people. And I said, these teenagers, somebody, how to help them feel secure about themselves and their own uniqueness and their own individuality that each one has. So that's what I would like to see in the school system. And once again, I I know it's not easy. I remember when I taught and I taught teachers. I was a teacher trainer for the United Federation of Teachers in New York City. And I was proud to do that. And they taught me all the new techniques and I taught them to other teachers. But I mean, I taught in prison schools and I, it was just wonderful to see the teachers are doing their best with what they have and with the supervision that they have and the orientation to improve test scores and things like that. Basically, praising individuality instead of conformity, and the whole bully idea has got to go. And I think teaching values. What I like about my Sedona Soul Stretch book, it's a reminder to keep these values. And then when you don't say, oops, I wasn't doing it, I'll get back to doing it. It's about values. I'd like schools to teach values and to values other than not conformity. And you know what else? I was telling people, nobody wants to see my resume. When I went to school, it was all about building your resume. I have
Mhm.
a 6-page resume, okay? But I didn't learn social media. I was supposed to learn social media because everybody wants to know my social media following, and they don't care about the resume. You follow? So it's kind of interesting. The kids now will have a good social media because they're all in tune with the electronics. But let's see where the character is, the integrity. I'd like schools to
Mhm.
teach character and integrity and model it.
And so, could you talk about your discipline? What was it for the dissertation? The
Okay,
wisdom and
I
principles.
told you I have all these New York isms. Well, in New York, Wednesday was Prince Spaghetti Day. Okay. So I came to Arizona and I wasn't doing my dissertation. Once I got here and I got busy and stuff and I got a boyfriend and all that. So I remembered the Wednesday was Prince Spaghetti Day. And one day I said to myself, Johanna, you see these Nike slogans, just do it. You're not doing it you know um, all right, so what I did was I went to Northern Arizona University, and I had to go back several times to sort of update my research of what I was doing and look up more articles. Then I made a deal with myself, and the deal was Wednesday is Prince Spaghetti Day. Wednesday is doctoral dissertation day. So every Wednesday, I arranged with this girl who had my computer, and I went to the computer. And but it's hard to start. Where do you start? So the second part of the deal was I didn't have to start until I won at solitaire. So I would go to the computer and I would play solitaire until I won or got close to winning. And then I would allow myself to be riveted at the computer for something like 3 or 4 hours. And it worked, just Wednesdays. And then I called him up and said I was finished. But Wednesday's Prince Spaghetti Day. You do whatever you need to do. I'm speaking to the audience. Do whatever you need to do. That's with integrity and not hurting anybody, of course, to get the job done. Promise yourself something. you know. But
Mhm.
Spaghetti Day, Wednesdays, doctoral dissertation, Ph.D. And nobody calls me doctor. Nobody knows. It's a secret. Anyway,
Until today. That's so funny though about Wednesdays because that's my doctoral day too. So Wednesdays is my ELA Institute days. So like anything school related, and that's when I get to it. So It's so funny. I wonder if there's something else going on with that, but just Wednesdays, it just seems like a good day to get to work.
It's kind of the middle of the week. You know, you've recovered from the weekend and you haven't gotten to relax into the next one yet. Well, good for you. That's wonderful. Yeah, and I have PhD now because I'm changing my business name from Sedona Spirit Yoga and Hiking, especially if I'm going to be living in different places part of the year. I'm changing it to my name. Johanna Mosca PhD is my name. So I have PhD, guys, piled high deep.
What is it in?
It's in writing research and theory from New York University. And I studied writing anxiety and writer's block, and it was a fascinating journey. I learned a lot. Yeah.
Oh. So, what is lighting you up these days? What do you want to share? Any upcoming books?
I almost started to mention that my intention is, um, I just attended the master facilitator course and for Psych, and they had us at the end think of what our mission statement would be. And my mission statement became about seniors because they said you should write from your own experience, everybody they were talking to, what you know about, um, a mother who lost a child, writing about losing a child. So I came up with the mission statement. Let me see if I have it memorized. Um, I inspire seniors to release the heaviness of aging and keep on keeping on developing themselves more fully. Release the heaviness of aging, and keep on keeping on developing yourself more fully, whatever your age. Does that sound good to you?
Yeah, it's powerful.
Well, that's it. And so I was listening to your talking about your books and the 10 books and the questions, and you've actually inspired me because I'm getting ready to do this now, and I'm going to say, what are my questions? What questions do they have? I mean, okay, keeping the body from falling apart is a big one. And keeping yourself medically healthy. And I just want to tell the world out there, I just did a panoply of blood tests and they all came out fine. So I a teen's over in the cholesterol, but not much, and I'm good. And I'm saying, my God, I have friends who have DIED. Do you know what I mean? uh, I'm one of the things with the Psych, once you shift the balance, you celebrate. So I'm learning to celebrate life more. And I just want to celebrate what's going on. I am in fine shape. I love my prayer walk. Knock wood, the knees don't hurt. Everything's functioning. It's great. I'm going to keep it that way. And what do I have to share? Not like I've gotten there and I'm always there. I'm the bus driver. Okay. I need to keep letting go of the heaviness of aging. Because sometimes it gets to be, I'm so tired of all of this, but I don't want to die. So I want life to keep stimulating me, right?
Hmm.
So what's next for me is writing a senior book. However, I am not finished in Sedona. I have a nice group of people who follow me on Facebook. We're going to do some retreats, 4-day retreats, where you look into your life about what you want to let go of and what you're looking to have next. And you go out in the red rocks and you experience good energy and you do some yoga and you learn to meditate and you learn to release things more and be present and create your own joy because that's what it's about.
Yeah.
Um, you know, um, in in when I did the master course, I wrote down some statements that I would muscle test in the master course to see if I believed them, and I wound up believing them all. One is I enjoy living. Okay, not everybody would muscle test yes to I enjoy living. Okay, I enjoy living. My body is healthy. Um, I have all the help I need. Thank goodness, because I didn't always. I had to do everything myself. I have all the help I need. And the last one that must have tested negative, my life, my life is fun. What?
Hmm.
My life is not fun. I'm not having much fun. Gosh, what could I do to have some more fun? Seriously. And I started to list the things I like to do to have fun. Well, I can't keep eating because I don't. Eating is fun, shopping is fun, Scrabble is fun, reading, writing is fun. Do you know what I mean? And my prayer walk, traveling is fun. Uh, but lately, I've been working a lot, so it's time to make sure I pencil in more fun. So it's about that principle of reflecting on yourself. You know, what do I have a lot of, and what could I have a little more of, and how do I want to balance this, and what would I like to shift? Remembering that we're in charge of our lives. And as you're teaching it very well, and the stars are helping us. Um, did I answer your question?
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, thank you so much, Johanna. It has been such a pleasure to talk to you, but unfortunately, we're out of time. Where can people find you?
Um, my website could be my name, Ph.D.com, Johanna Mosca, Ph.D.com, which I'm trying to change everything to, but it's easier to remember the other one. The other one is Yoga Life Net, YOGALIFE.net, and it's easy to remember because yoga is your life net, yogalife.net. And I would love to hear from people. And I'm having a retreat November 6th through 9th. It's a full moon retreat. We're going to go out and do shamanic bands of power out in the Red Rocks, 4-day retreat. So, plenty of time, November 6th through 9th. And I'd love to have some of your guests come and join me. And my book, Sedona Soul Stretch, 10 Ancient Yoga Principles to Heighten Consciousness and Performance, is available on Amazon as an ebook, a paperback book, and an audible book. You don't have to read it. You can listen to it in the car. And I promise you that I truly believe that there's something in that book for everyone. I almost wanted to make it a promise, a money back promise, and people said, don't do that. There are people in the world who follow you around to get their money back. Don't do that. But I honestly, truly believe in my heart that one of those chapters has something that you want to know for sure.
For sure. Thank you again. This has been amazing.
Thank you. I totally enjoyed being with you, learning from you. And I'm looking to get your dreaming book. I want to learn what you shared in that.
Oh, cool. Yeah, that's a good one to really tap into your dream world.
Yes, definitely.
And that's it. Thank you so much for joining us. If you liked this or learned something new, please give us a 5-star review wherever it is that you listen to your podcast. Don't forget to check out the website, and I'll see you next time. Bye, everyone.